My First PC Build is sponsored by Gigabyte. See their full line of motherboards and graphics cards at gigabyte.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to PC Perspective and our Build Your First PC project that we're working on, back with Austin. And so now we're actually going to get into the nitty-gritty of putting all of the hardware together. Are you prepared for this?
As prepared as I'll be.
Okay, if you break it, now you have to buy the extra parts, okay?
Oh.
Yeah, now you're going to pay attention. The first thing you need to do is really set up your workspace, right? And the idea here is that you want a fairly large, clean surface. Don't build this on a carpet. Static electricity is bad for electronic components. You don't really need a whole lot in the way of tools. For the most part, you're just going to need a Phillips head screwdriver. It is extremely helpful, although not required, to have one that has a magnetic tip. You're going to deal with a lot of very small screws. And when we get to working inside a case, it's sometimes nice to have like this little magnetic piece that you can reach down there and find a screw that you lost. It also might be helpful to have rubbing alcohol and Q-tips if we get messy with some of the application of thermal paste, which you only have to do one time, that we don't really expect to have. But that's pretty much it. Have enough space that you can lay all your components out the way we're starting to here, and you have room to work, especially if this is your first time. Also, even though we're not going to explicitly show it in any step here, maybe a couple, always look through all the directions, right? Read the directions that came with your motherboard. Read the directions that came with your processor, although there's not really much in there. Directions for your cooler are going to be fairly important because they're sometimes complex to install. But let's go ahead and dive into it. So what we have here now is we've taken our Gigabyte Z170X Gaming 5 motherboard. We've taken it out of the box. You're going to leave all the rest of the accessories in there. There's cables, there's connectors, there's manuals. Bring the manual out so you have that with you. And then we're going to place the motherboard on the box like this. And this is going to be our kind of beginning working surface. It's nice. It's cardboard. It raises it off the table. You don't have to worry about it really injuring anything here. Now, as you can look at, there's all kinds of components. You're not really going to hurt things by touching them, probably. But it's always best to leave things alone unless you need to do something else with it, right? So we're going to start with step one is installing the processor into the motherboard, right? So we have our processor here. Do you have that there?
Yeah.
All right. So that's our processor. That's our Intel Core i5 6600K CPU, fairly high-end part. Now, this is the socket where this goes. Now, there's a couple of first steps. One to note is if you look at the back of the processor, there's just some pads on the back. There aren't pins on it. AMD processors still have pins on the processor. For the Intel platform, the pins are underneath this cover. So first step is, Austin, if you'll take this where it says remove right there, just kind of pull it up gently.
That's not how they remove it.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Well, now what do I do? Okay. Oh, they tell you to put the processor in first.
So you don't damage the pins.
Okay, well, let's do that. Okay, so what we'll do here is I'll just set this back down. All right, ready? Okay, so what we'll do here now is, Austin, go ahead and take the processor and open it up. Open up the plastic with it and grab it kind of by the, see where there's a little opening there for your thumb and finger? Grab those by the edges. Now, let me see this for a second. If you look at this on the camera, you hold it by your forefinger and thumb here, you'll see that there is a notch up here and a notch up here. Can you see those? Also, there's a notch and a notch, right? And you're going to use those notches to line up the processor in the socket. So why don't you go ahead and take that processor at those front two parts. There you go. And the retention mechanism for the processor is this arm right here. So all you have to do to open this is push this down and out a little bit, and it kind of releases the tension, you see there? And as you pull this back, it will start to raise the socket retention there. Now, what you do, this is where you need to be careful. There's a whole lot of pins there, 1,100 and something pins that we were talking about before. And if you look, you see where the notches are on the processor, right? You can just hold it. And if you look on the socket, right there, there's a notch, and right there is the matching one. So if you line it up so that those two notches are at the top, and you kind of just gingerly place it down into the socket, there you go. All right. Now, as you put it down in there, good job. If you just kind of wiggle it around a little bit. Make sure just very gently that it's in there, that it's resting, that's not coming out of it. All right, now the next step is to take this plate and close that down and then put it underneath that little portion there. Now take the arm and push down. It's going to take a little bit of force. Keep pushing. Keep going. Keep going until this pops off, right? This little plastic piece pops off. You can move that out to the side and then push it all the way down and then back under that arm. Yep, just like that. And once that's in there, it's not moving. This plastic piece was there to protect those pens during shipping. And there you go. Now your processor is installed. We're all done. Let's turn it on. No, I'm just kidding. We can't do that yet. So the CPU is in its socket. Everything is in there. That's all good. Now the next step is we've got our system memory here and we've got our CPU cooler. In general, it's a little bit easier to install the CPU cooler next. You don't have the memory kind of in the way there. So we're going to use the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. One thing you want to consider is it's going to sit on the processor like this, right? But you can organize it in any other number of ways, probably. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a tip here. Is in general, in cases, the airflow of the case is going to move from this side of the motherboard across and exhaust out this side.
So you want the fan to face that way so the wind blows it?
You want the fan to move air in the same direction that it's going to be moving everywhere else. So we're going to install the heatsink like that. All right. But there's steps that go along with this. First, we have our thermal interface material, TIM, TIM as some people just call it, right? And the idea is it will be a goopy-like substance that we put onto the processor so that it will transfer heat to the heatsink efficiently.
Does it come out fast or slow?
You know what? That's going to depend on it. Sometimes it's thicker than others. Sometimes it's a little bit thinner. So we're going to go through here. We take out this accessory box. And this is where, like I said, this is one of the times where instructions are important. If you're a fan of IKEA, you'll be a fan of this. If you're not a fan of IKEA, you're not going to be a fan of it. So it tells you how to install the fan. We've already done that on this heatsink. It's going to tell you how to install the thermal interface. And then you'll notice on the directions that there is Intel listed and AMD listed on these directions. And so we're using an Intel processor, so you want to keep track of the Intel options, right? So here is where it helps to learn a little bit about what platform you're using. Here's LGA 775, 1150, 1156, 1155, and then LGA 2011. Which one are we using? We're using the LGA 1100. Remember we were talking about 1100 pins on that? So this shows you how to do some of the mounting on it. And this is all of the different pieces that you have to get to work these heat sinks. I'm going to be honest with you, Austin. This is probably the most complex part you'll have to do. I mean, look, we'll show the camera here. Look at all the pieces inside this. Look at all these pieces. You've got this weird X-looking thing. This is what will actually hold the heatsink down. This is for a different platform. And then we've got this plastic bin of screws and bolts and nuts and some more thermal interface, as it turns out, that we already had in here. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. Now it's important, Austin, let's look through this, where we match up things accordingly. So on this X, it's telling you what sections we're going to use for mounting in it. If you look, there's 3 positions for everything. So on this one, we're going to go into the middle with it. So let's open this up because this part can be somewhat tedious. We'll accelerate it some to help you out and help our viewers out here as well. So here's where we need to look. So you can see that there are 4 mounting holes through here, and these studs go through that, right? And this is one of the complicated parts. You've got to hold it kind of in place while you flip the motherboard over. And on this particular cooler installation, it's a little bit tricky. There's actually a place where the threads are flat. And I need to rotate that so I can actually see it, as that will basically allow you to install that like that. Otherwise, it won't fit over the top of it. So I'm going to reach through, take one more of these studs, go into that same hole on a different side, and push it through there. All right. And now what we need to do is, you'll see in the directions that the idea is to put a nut on the underside of this, like here, and attach these to the back. Now, as with most things with these computers, or basically anything, right, you put stuff like this on finger tight at first, as opposed to bolting them on tightly completely the first time. That way, if you have to go back and change anything, or you didn't quite get the installation right the first time, it's a little bit easier to fix all of that. So again, we've got to rotate it till we find the flat side. We'll put another one of these on there, maybe. All right, here, you take that one, and let me push this side through. There it goes. All right, so go ahead and put that one on there. There you go. Now, Cooler Master supplies this little tool here. It's essentially a nut driver on this side that you can use with a normal screwdriver. So we're going to go ahead and put this in there like that and tighten it up. And as you tighten these up, it's always good to do them in diagonal, right? So don't do them like tighten this side, tighten across from it. The same way. This kind of equalizes the amount of pressure that you're putting on each side of the motherboard, I guess, if you will. So you tighten all four of those down until they are good and snug. You don't want to overkill pretty much anything in computers. These parts are still fairly sensitive. So there we go. That takes us to step 5. All right. And now, when you flip it back over, you'll see that we have a place now for our X here to essentially screw in. So you see how that works?
Yeah.
It's always good to picture that first, kind of show how that works before you actually put the heatsink on, so you know what you're looking for. So we'll take that off, move it to the side. Now it's time for the most sensitive discussion we'll have today, the application of thermal interface material. Austin, you won't believe how many people out there have varying opinions on how you should install thermal interface. Some people say you put some on with your finger. Put it on your finger and apply it to it. Some people say you put some on and use a credit card to lay it nice and flat. Other people will say that you put it on, put the heatsink on, take the heatsink off, wipe off the extra from one of them, and then leave the rest. Here's the secret. Most processor guys and heatsink guys say the answer is to put a pea-sized amount in the middle of the processor, and then that's it. You put the heatsink down on top of it, it kind of spreads it out. And the idea is to have an interface between that piece of metal and this piece of metal to help with the heat transfer. So I'm going to have you do this. Make sure you do this. Actually, we'll use this one out of this box, actually. It'll be a little bit newer. All right, so it's basically like any kind of other syringe, right? So very carefully put some on there. Squeeze just a little bit. There you go. Yep, that's good. So then pull the syringe bob out a little bit so it takes it away from the top there. And we'll put the cap back on it. Oop, go ahead and put that cap back on it. And that's pretty much it. That's what we're going to do. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and have you take this heatsink and place it on top of the processor. It doesn't have to be perfectly aligned right now. Just place it on there like that. Yep. And so you can kind of squish it around some. All right. So now our processor is in the right place. We have to get this mounting doohickey into the right spot. And this is a little bit of a pain about it. You got to send it through one side. Wrong one. Let's do this way. There we go. So send it through there. All right. And there's a metal post in the middle. There's like a little, see that little metal post there?
Yeah.
And then like the divot, you want to make sure that that gets into there correctly.
Okay.
All right. And then you just kind of line up the post that we've already put in. Put that in there. And what I do is like just finger tight a couple of these just to get it started, so that you know everything's lined up before you tighten it all the way down. Is that on there, Austin? I can't see that one.
Yeah.
Can you see that one? Go ahead and see if you can get, to push it down some and then screw it in a little bit with your fingers. Can you get it? No, that's all right. Let me rotate it. All right, we'll do that with the screwdriver one too. All right. So now, if you see, we've got it. It's on there for the most part, but it's not tight. Everything needs to be tight on it. And one thing for this installation, we'll have to take this fan off, these clips, make this really easy on this heatsink. Another reason people really like this design. All right. So if we take this screwdriver and do that, start to tighten these down a little bit. So once you do that, once you tighten this screw down here until it basically stops on its own. All right. Now which one should, wait, hold on, which one should you do next? Across from it?
Yeah.
There we go. So do that one across from there. All right. Now you can do either one next, probably this one up top. There you go. So the idea here is to get that heatsink nice and snug onto the processor. Processor allows the thermal interface to work its magic, helping to draw the heat away from, this is the last one here, away from the processor to this much kind of larger, beefier piece of metal, and to dissipate the heat safely. This is one thing computer components hate, Austin. It's heat. All right. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to put the fan back on it. In which direction do we want the fan to go?
This way.
Want it to go that way? All right. One other thing to note is that your fan is going to have a power cable, right? So it's going to have to attach to your motherboard somewhere. If you see, if you look on the overhead shot, there's these little white blocks here. These are fan headers. You'll see there's one there. There's a black one right here. There's another one down here. There's lots of them. But this one, if you look at it, what's that say? Does it say, what's that say? Something fan?
CPU fan.
CPU fan. So that's the one that you want to attach to the fan that's on your CPU. So we'll go ahead and clip this guy back on, and we'll just kind of move the cable over that way so that it's, rotate this a little bit, so that it's close to that header that we want it to actually be attached to. So we'll go ahead and snap that on pretty easily there. All right. And we always just make sure you plug your CPU fan header in. That way you don't overheat your processor, which is good. So we're just going to fold this out of the way for right now. We'll do some better cable management later. So there you go. That's actually your CPU is now completely installed. You got the heatsink on. If no problems arise, we're pretty good, right? So now the best thing you can do after that is to take all of your accessories, all the little tools that we use to put that together, and put it back into their original box, put it away so that if you have to undo it, if you want to change the processor later, you still have access to all those tools. And that's, and also put the directions with them too. That's also a really good idea. All right, up next, we're going to do this memory, right? So we talked about this a little bit in the first part where you asked, could you just add more memory? And you didn't have to remove any. As it turns out, this motherboard and most motherboards based on this platform have 4 DIMM slots, dual inline memory module. And that's where your memory gets installed, our DDR4 memory from Corsair that we have right here. Now this installation process is pretty easy. As we look at it here, you'll see a couple of things. One, if you look at this side of the memory module, it's kind of fixed. But if you look at this side of the memory module, you have these arms. right? And these are what kind of will lock memory modules in place. Also notice on it, if we look at the overhead, that there are keys here. And by keys, I mean there's like a little notch, right? See how the little notch is there?
Yeah.
And you notice that this is different length than this length. So if you take a module and you kind of line that up, you'll notice that the keys match up, right? So you don't have to worry about, as long as you do that beforehand, you see that the modules and the keys line up, you shouldn't really have any issues. Now, since we have 4 modules and we have 4 DIMM slots, that's it. Like, we don't have to worry about it. But most of the time, or many times rather, you'll have 2 DIMM slots, or you'll have 2 DIMMs, you'll have 2 DDR4 memory modules to put in here, and you'll have to worry about which ones they go into. Most motherboards today are really good at labeling this. If you look here, what's that say? DDR4 1, DDR4 3, DDR4 2, and 4. So you would install them into DDR1 and DDR2. So essentially, if you only had 2 memory modules, you would install them in the 2 red slots.
Okay.
But since we have 4, since your system's going to have 16 gigs of memory, it's going to be filled up, we don't have to worry about that. We install it in all of that. So I'm going to line up. I'll do the first one here, right? And all you got to do is you line it up, and you can see how it kind of slides into those guides, right? And then if we just, you push down till you hear and feel a click. Hear that? And so what you should see is that this clip came up on its own and kind of locked into place. That means everything's good. So why don't you give one a shot? Take one of those, find the direction it should be installed based on where the key lines up. Line it up and guide it on the red sides there. So it should slide down. All right, and then push down. There you go. It takes a good amount of force to get those in there. Okay, that was good. Go ahead and do the other 2. So we'll get all of those lined up. Push down from the center sometimes will help.
Okay.
There we go. And the last one. There you go. So all 4 of those arms are back up now. You've got a fully populated. That's a lot of memory on that system actually. And so now your motherboard, processor, and memory and cooler are kind of ready to go. That wasn't so bad, right? But if you don't have somebody there to help you that's done it before, it can be a little daunting at first. So that's the easy steps, guys. Well, kind of, right? But this is the most you can do. This is the most I recommend doing outside of the case. So the next step will be to bring up the Corsair 450D case, and we'll talk about installing the motherboard into that as well as the rest of the components onto it, and go from there. All right, so we've got the case on the desk here, this big giant thing between you and I. This is the Corsair 450D. There's some interesting features about this case in particular. I showed you this right before we started recording. There's a magnetic air filter up top, which basically you can remove and vacuum. So, you know, you've got dogs and cats at your house. So their hair will inevitably get in and around the case. This helps minimize that some, so you can keep that clean. On the front, you have the same thing. This front door comes off. You can vacuum that out as well. You've got places for your optical drives up here. You've got some front panel connectors we'll talk about as we go. Now, once you have your space cleared and you've got your case up on the desk or table that you're working on, first thing to do is remove the side panels. Right? Now, these happen to have thumb screws, which are really nice. You don't have to worry about getting the screwdriver every time that you get in and out of the case. And then you grab the handles and slide the doors off. Put this to the side. You're not going to need those basically until the very end when you're closing up the machine and ready to go. So we'll go ahead and take off both of these side panels, removing the thumb screws first. Another good idea in terms of space here and everything, or locations to do builds, make sure you're putting screws, you're putting pieces in places where you're not going to lose them. That could mean getting a pill caddy or something like that to put them in, or it could be as simple as, you know, having a little bowl to put them in, maybe a couple of different bowls. So, you know, this one's came from the case, these ones came from the motherboard, those types of things. So here's the chassis, right? We've got the side off of it. You can see through it. You'll notice that one of these drive bays down here, Austin, oops, put that back in there, has something in it.
Yeah.
You pull that out. So in here, you'll have your screws and accessories necessary for doing installation. So we'll set that off to the side. Now, we're going to go ahead and turn this puppy over so that we can see what we're looking at. Now, inside here is where all of the motherboard parts, the video card, your storage will all go inside this. And installation on it is not overly complicated. So the first step in doing this, and something that I forget all the time, and that people should never ever forget, if you take that motherboard carefully, take it off the box, and put it on the side of the table there, and then open up the box for me, and you should find a yep. Let's see that motherboard box, and we'll open it up, all right? And in here, with the other accessories, right? We've got some SATA cables. You can take those out, put those at the end of the table. You can take this little guy over there, put it at the end of the table. We'll need that. Is this, right? And this is your I/O shield, right? It is essentially a little piece of metal that adapts every case to your particular motherboard. So what that means is, if you look at the connectors on the side of your motherboard.
This one?
Yep. Actually, go ahead and lift it up and put it up here on the side of the case. So if you look at these connectors right here on the side of the motherboard, you'll notice that these should match up.
Okay.
Right? So basically, that helps you figure out where all the pieces go. But you have to put this in pretty much the very first thing you do inside of a case. Otherwise, you can't actually get to it. So go ahead and set that over there carefully for me. All right. And we'll go ahead and do that installation. So if you see this part back here, let's see, you can show me the overhead and see what we can see on this, or the front angle shot. So we're trying to look at this area right here. Yeah, there we go. And so this basically lines up like this. This is one area where I would caution you to be very careful about cutting your fingers or anything like that. So we're going to move this. See this also? We've got a power cable for a fan. We're going to move that out of the way. We line this up so that it kind of matches up with the motherboard, and the words are up first. And we put this into that area. And push it into place. Let's kind of get a snap. There we go. So now that's in place. So now you look at the back of the case, you'll see your I/O shield is installed there. And we have a pretty good idea of where everything is going to line up. Now, the next step for this is to actually place the motherboard with your memory and cooler and all that installed into the chassis. So bring that over here. We'll go ahead and do that. Now, the secret here is, again, we have these I/O panel connectors. We want to line them up with this. And also note that in this particular case, Corsair does a very good job with this. These are little standoffs, right? These are raised kind of pieces of metal above the back plate of the case that actually will hold the motherboard just off of it, right? And if you notice in the motherboard itself, you have screw holes at corresponding locations. It's amazing how all this works out so well. Years and years and years of computer standards have gone in our favor. So this is maybe the only kind of complicated part here, because sometimes you have to put a little bit of pressure on the motherboard to get it to line up. So if you'll go ahead and lift that out of the way, just kind of hold it up out of the way. What we do here is we set the motherboard down, making sure that we use our I/O shield to line it up, right? And in this case, we apply a little bit of forward pressure. I don't know if let me do that again so you can see. See how it was lined up, but the motherboard here is not kind of sitting flat on those. If you push forward, the Corsair 450D has one post right here that actually sticks up through. You see that?
Yeah.
And that actually makes it really nice. That means that once you've applied it and you've applied the forward force to it, you don't have to worry about holding it there while putting the screws in the system, which is actually a really, really nice touch. Something that if you build a lot of computers, you can definitely appreciate. So the next step is to screw the motherboard down into the case, right? Keep it secure, keeps it grounded so you don't have any electrical issues. So if we go open up that box for me, you'll probably find any number of bags of screws in there. Just one?
Yep. Just
Okay.
one.
What's inside that bag? Are there more bags of screws?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
little bags of screws.
So let's open that up and see what we get out of here. This is kind of your bag of accessories for the case. Corsair supplies a handful of zip ties for you to clean up your cable clutter. So you can put those over there to the side for me if you will. And then we've got a bunch of little individual baggies of screws that unfortunately, man guys, if I had one complaint about PC building, it's this. This bag should be labeled of what this is for. This bag should be labeled what this is for. All of these should be labeled. All of these should be labeled. The way I can tell this as somebody who's built a lot of PCs over the years is basically by looking at the size of the thread and the size of the screw. Right? So if you look, these here are very small. I don't know if we can see if it'll even show up on camera. The screws are very small and the threading on them is very narrow. Right? These are going to be used for installing SSDs into the system. Right? That's just something that I know to be the case. These are a little bit bigger screws with a little bit wider thread, and I'm pretty sure these are the ones we're going to use on the motherboard. So again, as I was talking about before, when doing this, make sure you have kind of an area where you're comfortable with the screws. You don't want to lose any. So what I like to do is kind of put them on the bag. Now hand me the screwdriver. Again, we went with a magnetic tipped screwdriver so I could do stuff like this and hopefully not drop it into the case. Now what you should see is at every hole there should be a little post underneath it that is threaded. And if you simply put that screw in there, turn it, it will screw it down into place. Now in this case you want to just make it basically kind of finger tight, not much more than that. I believe there are 9, maybe there's only 8 on this one because of the post, but we basically do that at each of those locations. And sometimes if it doesn't exactly line up, you'll have to like wiggle the screw around a little bit. So here, why don't you go ahead and take this and install it into that one right there. There you go. Put a little force down on it. There we go. Oop. Yeah, see that one's not catching the... okay, there we go. It finally caught in there. I think we got another one up on your side as well. Is there another screw hole right over here?
Yeah, there's 2 more. One up in the corner and one right there.
All right, we'll go ahead and put one into that section. It's going in?
Yep.
All right. All right. Same thing. All right, back in the corner. There we go. All right, I'll do these ones down here on my side. So the idea here is pretty simple. Everything is going to attach to the motherboard. You want to make sure the motherboard is nice and secured. There used to be, a long time ago when we did this, electrical concerns with if you didn't screw it down, sometimes you could short out the motherboard, which is obviously a bad idea. So looks like we'll have 2 leftover screws. So why don't you take those 2 extra screws, put them back in that little baggie, just in case we need them for a different build. So there you go. Now our motherboard is mounted into the system. It wasn't so hard, right? No. And so now we get into kind of the rest of the system, right? We've got video cards put in here, SSDs, optical drives. Something to keep in mind is if you look here at the overhead view of this, let me kind of slide this around so we can see a couple more of the parts. So we've got this fan power controller, or fan power cable, rather, over here. This is just some things we don't want to forget about, right? We'll want to plug this in. And now is really as good a time as any to do so. So we'll go ahead and undo this twist tie and get that out of the way. And you have this cable, this fan header cable. Now, we saw the one that was specifically marked for CPU fan,
Yeah.
right, over here. The other ones are going to be less specifically named. This one might be called system fan or alternate fan or something like that. So if I look over here, there's one, it's kind of hard to see, labeled sysfan 1,
Yeah.
right? You see it, and you see the little black connector there.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and install that into there. Now the cable should be more neatly bandaged than this, or more neatly bundled rather, I should say. We'll just kind of push it out of the way for now and leave cable management for essentially the last step. Other cables you have to deal with in here, you've got another front fan connector. Actually looks like you've got 2 front fan connectors.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and do these as well. Get this. So this is, what's that say, sysfan 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead and plug that into there. And then, let's see, where's that other one? It's kind of hiding from us back here. We'll do that one later since it's on the bottom side,
Okay.
hidden by these drive cages. But this is make sure that all of our fans, so the fans are going to bring in air from the front of the case, through it, out the back. Kind of like we were designing our
Yeah.
CPU fan here as well. Also notice this bundle of cables, Austin. This is how you'll connect your power switch. So up here you've got your power button, reset button, you've got some LEDs that let you know if the system is on. All of that has to be configured manually. And then you've got front panel USB connectors. We'll do those a little bit later as well. So I think it makes sense next to install our storage devices. So if I lean over here, we've got our optical drive. We have our hard drive and our SSD, right? So in the Corsair 450D, you can see these. This is a drive cage down here. This is where you would store hard drives and SSDs. Now, what's interesting is that these are toolless in the terms of you don't need any tools or screws for certain types of devices. So if we, actually here you do this. So if you take that, squeeze those two together, pull it out, you have a drive cage, right? Or a drive bay or a drive sled, whatever you want to call it. And this will fit both the SSD and the hard drive, although clearly they are different sizes, right? It's toolless for the hard drive. We'll have to use some screws for the SSD.
Okay.
Notice the posts right here. If you see like the little metal rivets
Yeah.
on there, they kind of line up with
Yeah.
the holes on the hard drive, right? Now, since this comes in this way, we want the hard drive to be mounted like this so that the power and data connections go out the back of the system. So if you want to hold that drive sled for me, hold it up over right about here, right? And if you kind of flex it apart a little, what we'll see is if we line it up correctly, there should be those holes slide into just like that. And then if you pull that down and push that up into there, there you go, just like that. So now that's not a super tight fit, so you want to be careful. You don't want to like jiggle it around or throw it or rotate it, flip it. But once you've got that in there, if you kind of go ahead and slide it back down into the tray, it locks into place, and that's where you're at. Now for the SSD, we have to do, it's a little bit more complicated. We'll take this out. And if you look at the SSD, those rivets on the side aren't going to help any. Those aren't going to do any good for us. But what is going to help us out is the holes on the bottom here. Now the unfortunate part is because these are toolless, you'll notice that I can't line those screw holes up. You see that? How the screw holes aren't going to line up because of this metal rivet right here. So we actually have to take that guy out, which is you just pull it out. And you'll save that just in case you want to use it for a hard drive later.
Okay.
And now, if you look at it, all of the holes will match up on your SSD.
Okay.
So go ahead and open up that baggie of screws. That's the really small ones with the very small threads. Those are the ones that I thought looked like they were for SSDs to begin with. So just take out, we'll just use 4. We don't really need all 4 of them. SSDs aren't going to go anywhere. But put one on the end of that screwdriver for me. And we will get this guy started. And actually, before I do this, I do want to see something. Let's move that optical drive out of the way for me. I think, if I remember correctly, Ken, on this case, there's actually a place where we can do this toollessly. So if you look at the back, you see these right there, those bays. I don't know if I can rotate that to see it. Where are they at? Can you point them out? Are they here?
Yeah,
Is
right
them?
there.
Okay. So we can actually do this without using screws on this particular case anyway. So let's do that. That's a neater way of installing it to begin with. So take that screw off there, put that in that bag. So we still have that. We'll put this drive sled back in there. And we'll put that in there with it too.
So you want this in this bag?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and put it in there. That way you know kind of what it's associated with. And then let's trying to get all this framed up in cameras is kind of a pain sometimes, but let's flip this over on this side and see what our overhead looks like. Yeah, there we go. That's not too bad. So this is essentially the same idea as this, only it's actually even easier. It just slides into place. You push that out of the way and put that in there. So you go ahead and try that. So take that, right? There you go. Slide it in and then just push it all the way towards the back. So you hear it kind of click into place. There we go. There we go. And so it does a good job of even kind of, allowing you to raise up the SSD some so you can get access to the power and data cables there. And this is completely toolless, again, and also very clean. So we'll be able to easily run power and data cables through that. Also, interesting note, since we're looking at this bottom side, if you have to change the CPU cooler while the motherboard's in the case, you can do that because of this cutout on the back of the case. It's kind of nice. So there are our storage devices, except for our optical drive bay. So before we put the optical drive bay in, we actually have to remove one of these two front panels. In the Corsair cases, they have a little clip on the inside that if I can reach in and find, yeah, there we go. Just basically allows us to pop this guy out, and now we have an opening for that optical drive. And I think it just slides in place. So if you open this, so like there's an unlock mechanism for it, right? If we show that, it's kind of a lock and unlock on it. So if it's unlocked, and we just take this and slide it in, into place so that it lines up, and then lock it in. There we go.
And pop back up.
Did it? All right. See, is it lined up there? There we go.
Yeah.
I think we got it there.
Yeah.
There we go. So, and it actually has a location where you can retain it. You can put a little screw in there. Here, we'll turn it down again this way. So even though you've got these toolless bays, it kind of makes sense with optical drives, especially since they're spinning media, to use one of, let's see, one of the smaller, where's one of the smaller screws that we're going to use for the SSDs? Yeah, give me one of those. We'll go ahead and put that in, into this retention thing here. See that? Put that in there. There we go. Just in case. We don't want that buddy popping out. So now we have all of our storage placed inside the case, but not really installed because we don't have power going to them. We don't have data going to them. That'll kind of be our last step. I think the next thing we want to do is install the graphics card. Right? Before we get into power, that's the kind of our last step here. As we want to, actually, I think before we do the graphics card, let's deal with this stuff.
Okay.
All right. So this is all the stuff that allows the accessories of your case to function. Right. So the power button, the reset button, the stuff I mentioned before. And if you separate it out, once we undo the zip tie, you see there's actually several sets of connections, right? This guy is for your front USB ports. This guy, labeled HD audio, is for front panel audio. So you can see up the front you've got connectors for headphones and microphone if you want to use those. So we'll install that on the motherboard. And you have this guy, all this set of cables. It's for hard drive LEDs, power switch, all that. And so we'll talk about those. So the first thing is, if we look on the motherboard, there's actually here labeled USB 3.0, USB 3.0. So those are extra spots on the motherboard that the manufacturer, the vendor of this board, has allowed for you to connect these types of connections to. So it's actually really straightforward to do. All of these types of connections are keyed in a particular way. And by that, I mean, you see how it has like a little piece of plastic on the top of that? If you look at the port there, there's an opening for it. So go ahead and take that, flip it around like that, and you can pick either side. I'd actually do the higher one, just because it will mean probably it will mean getting less in the way of other cables later down the road. So once you think you've got the key lined up, you can go ahead and push it down. There you go, a little bit more. Sometimes these connections feel like they take a lot of force. There you go. There you go. So that is in there now. All right. And then we have our HD audio connection. This is going to vary depending on the motherboard. No, okay, it's all the way down here. I'll go ahead and do that since it's all the way down here.
Okay.
And it's keyed as well. There's actually one pin that's not available. So again, they do a pretty good job making it difficult to install things incorrectly. At least they try to. All right. Now this bundle of mess here used to be very, very difficult to deal with. This is, you see all these pins right here, these kind of multicolored section of pins. You used to kind of have to like look at a manual and measure up which ones went where and hope you got the positive and negative correct. They've fixed things by, if you look at that little piece right there that says Gigabyte on it, I'll rip this open and take this guy out. Gigabyte calls this the G connector. Which is something that basically allows you to install the cables to it first, right? And then you kind of all at once plug it down. So it actually makes the process a lot easier. So if you look at this device, you can see how it has HD plus and minus. That stands for hard drive, plus and minus. So you look at this where you have the hard drive and it kind of matches up, right? And you basically push that down in there until you hear it click into place. Okay. This one says RES plus and minus, which is essentially reset, right? So you find a cable that says reset switch, and you put it down into there as well, right? And then you have power LED. This one's a little bit more of a pain because it has a positive and a negative. And on these, you can see they're actually separated. Yeah. So we'll put these down. Let's see, there and there. Okay. I think that's lined up. And then the last one, and arguably the most important one, is for power switch. Otherwise, you won't be able to turn on your computer. Right, which would be bad. So we'll go ahead and line that one up, put it into there, and ta-da. Now, if you look at how this cable, how this little block is set up versus how that is set up, there's really only one way for that to push down and be installed in theory. So there you go. That's actually way easier than it used to be. 5, 6, 7 years ago, Austin, that would have taken us 45 minutes to do. I'm not going to lie. All right, so now all of our cable accessories seem to be installed. I think now we're ready to get to the graphics card, the most expensive, most important part of a gaming PC. So I'll reach over here, and we find our Gigabyte WindForce GTX 970 Extreme Edition. A couple of things you'll notice on it, that the manufacturer has come with a little sheathing over the PCI Express connection. So this is the part that will actually connect your graphics card to the motherboard. right? Remember I said everything connects to the motherboard. Everything goes back to that at some point. So we'll have to remove that so you can see the kind of the connectors. And if you look down at all the slots in your case here, through the overhead, you'll see that there are lots of slots that they could line up with, but only a couple of them are the right size. Can we see the overhead on this? And of the 3 that they can be, this one is the primary. The one closest to the processor is the primary. If it's something you can't remember, you're not sure, that will definitely be in the motherboard manual. So this slot here, this PCI Express slot, will go into that first segment. But there's one thing we have to do first. We have to make room for it through this back panel here. So if you can see here, there's actually these plates that are kind of getting in the way. So if you look, where's the screwdriver go? Do we have our screwdriver over there?
No.
Where did it go?
See it.
Oh, here it is. I got it. Never lose a screwdriver. So you can see here, if you look at where this is sometimes, again, a guess and check type of thing, but you'll want to remove, you'll see that this has 2 slots on it.
Yeah.
Right? So you'll want to remove 2 of these. So we'll go ahead and use our screwdriver and take these out. One of those. So hold on to that. Then all you got to do to take these plates out at that point is they kind of come in and they lift out.
Okay.
Right? And again, these are something that you should probably save, put into your motherboard box, something like that, as it means, if you ever change the video card, maybe you use one that has a single slot, or for whatever reason, you sell the case to somebody else or something like that. You want to have all those types of accessories. But we'll save the thumb screws because we need those to put the video card back in. So all you do to install the video card into the motherboard is you line up, right? You just like DIMM slots, by the way, you open up these slots that way. You line it up, and you push it down until you kind of hear a clicking sound, right? Now this is a fairly large video card, if you can tell, right? If you look here, where it kind of is interfering with these cables just a little. You might have to move them out of the way a little bit to do so. So I'm going to have you do this. I'm going to watch and guide you because we don't want to mess this part up.
Yeah.
But you can see how it lines up there with that PCI Express slot overhead.
Yeah.
If you look down that way, you see how that lines up. And do you also see how it's keyed in the same way that the DIMM slots were? So all we do is, I'll take that extra protector thing off too. Go ahead and hold the video card, right? And go ahead and slide it down towards, so you can put it down a little bit like that.
Okay.
And then look on that side and see if the connectors are actually going into the PCI Express slot. Do they look like they are? Let's see.
No, I don't think they were. Now there.
Now they are?
Yeah.
All right. So now push down on it kind of in the center until you hear a click. There you go.
Like that?
Yep. So now if you pull up a little bit on it, you should feel that it's locked in. It's not really going to move very much, but we still have these 2 holes here. So we're going to take these thumb screws and put those guys back in here. All right. Same thing with this. Tighten these down with the screwdriver a little bit. There we go. The thread was fighting us a little bit. All right. There we go. So now our graphics card's installed. You can see it's pretty big. There are other cases that are bigger or wider. We'll have more room for that.
Okay.
And I think the only remaining piece we have here now is actually the stuff that's going to power it all, right? So the power supply, on some cases, still you'll see power supplies mounted at the top. In this case, our power supply is going to be mounted at the bottom. So you can see this opening here.
Yeah.
This is where your power plug will plug into. The power supply will go in here, and that's pretty easy. And then we'll actually run all of the cables, which is maybe less simple to do.
Are these magnets here to hold it in place, or what are these just cushion to lift it up?
Those are just cushions that basically keep it off the bottom of the case, and it also keeps the vibration down. So remember, this has a fan on it. If the fan's spinning, it will keep the vibration from maybe making any noise in your room in the middle of the night. Now, one thing to note is that this case has a bottom air filter, right? Actually, it comes out down here, right? So there's air intake coming through this. So if there's air intake coming in, we want the fan of the power supply, I'm kind of hidden from the camera here, we want the fan of the power supply to draw air in. So we want to mount the power supply like this.
Okay.
All right? So let's put that there. Slide this a little bit out of the way so I can actually see what I'm doing. Is our side angle shot, is our front angle shot still good on that, Ken? Yeah, there we go. So we want this to kind of mount into place like this, right? And if you, as you just push it back, you'll notice that these screw holes do line up, right? And that's, I mean, it's really that simple to get them mounted. Let's see those screws. There should be, no, shorter ones. No, try again.
I'm going to say these or those. That doesn't have enough.
Yeah. The power supply actually comes with its own set of screws. I just thought the case might have enough on its side. That's okay. We need some more accessories out of here anyway. So we'll set that off to the side. All right. Yep, there's our little baggie for that. We'll keep our manual out, our power cord, and then this bag of cables that we'll need for our next step. All right. So that's out of the way. Now let's try these. Let's try these screws this time. Yeah, there we go. For appropriately sized screws.
What is this for? What does this do?
That's a case badge.
Okay.
So those are simply things, they're basically stickers that you can put on the front of your case if you want, right? This one says powered by Corsair, and to note that you're using a Corsair power supply. Some people do that, some people don't. It's really just a personal decision.
Okay. Can we hold that?
Yeah, hold the power supply in from the back. That's a good idea. So we put those in there. Okay. And then
You could probably screw that one in a little bit more because it wasn't.
get all of them in there. Oop, wrong side. Where am I going? There it is. Alright. This guy will go here. And the last screw here. All right. So, slide that stuff down there too. There's some more zip ties for you to help with power supply cable mounting, or routing rather. So, we basically have all the components installed in your case now. All right. Now the problem is we don't have any cables run between anything. So nothing has power. Nothing can communicate through data connections. And that's kind of the messy step. It's not difficult, it's just messy. If you open up this bag that came with your power supply, since it is a fully modular power supply, all of these cables are individual, okay?
It's pretty thick cable.
Yep, this is the one that will go to your motherboard. This is one that will go to your motherboard as well. This is one that will go to your video card. You've got some that go to your SSDs and your hard drives. Yeah, there's a lot of connections in
Does
here.
this stuff have this kind of stuff on it so it doesn't tear or
Correct.
cut easily?
Right. You don't want the power cables to get cut. So when you're feeding them through around the metal, you don't want them to get cut or sheared or any kind of way. So let's go ahead and do the power supply stuff, because it's probably going to be the least straightforward of all of this. I can tell you what, the case has gotten a lot heavier all of a sudden as well. So here's our power supply. And you'll notice, Austin, that there are these little rubber grommets. You see those?
Yeah.
Right? That allows us to pass cables through to the back of the case to make things neater. Right? So that way, when you look in the window of the case, it doesn't look that bad.
Yeah.
Right? And that's before this, all of my cables looked really messy. Now they all look amazing, and I'm super grateful for the invention of those particular things. And if you look on the back side, if we switch to the front camera over here, you'll see where these cables will actually cables will actually come through. So for example, let's take this cable here as I try to find a place to do this. Now this is the primary cable for your motherboard, right? So if you look at it on this side, you'll see that there are two connectors, right? These will actually go into the power supply side, and then this one will actually go into your motherboard. Now it doesn't matter which one you connect first, but in my opinion, sometimes it's just easier to connect to the product first, connect to the motherboard, and then feed it through. And otherwise, sometimes it's easier to go the other way. So what I do is, here, let's flip this back down. We take this and kind of straighten it out some, because you're going to want all the cable length you can get. And again, do you see how this has a key on it?
Yes.
Right? And the tooth right there. So if you take that cable, Austin, and plug it into that connector to line up all the pins, and push down pretty hard. There you go. So you heard it click?
Yep.
Okay, good. So now what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll feed it through here.
Okay.
All right, in theory. We hope we have enough length for this. So as you turn it over and we feed that cable through there, so go ahead and pull that all the way through. Keep pulling. There you go. Now what you'll notice on the other side is that, I'm going to take this front panel off because I'm afraid I'm going to break it while we're moving it. On the other side is that we have pulled it fairly tight, right, through there. Okay. Now where do you think this should go?
Right through this one.
You think it should go back through that one?
Yeah, where the battery is.
Yep, I think that's probably a good idea. So now if you feed that through here, we'll see these cables come through on the bottom, right, ready to be attached to the power supply. Now what I would probably do is, this one we're certain where it's going to go, so I see no issues with that. And if you look at the front of the motherboard, or I'm sorry, at the front of the power supply, it's hard for you to see from there, Austin. It's keyed again so that you can't plug this in incorrectly. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug this into the power supply. All right. Like that. All right, now the next pain in the butt one, that's probably the biggest pain in the butt, is one labeled CPU. See how that one says CPU on it there? So this one is also plugged into the motherboard, but tends to be in a kind of a tricky spot to get to. So what we'll do here is we'll flip this down, and I may have to get in the way of the camera for this one, but you'll see it's right up here behind. There we go, right up here next to the CPU socket. All right, now this one has the furthest to go on the route, right? Notice that this one says Type 4, this one says CPU. So this one needs to go into the motherboard, and generally it's near the processor. That's why it's labeled that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and install that here, all right? And if you wanted it to look bad, you could run this cable down here and install it just into the bottom of the power supply like that. But I don't think anybody wants that. We don't want, if we're going to go through all this effort, let's at least try to make it look decent. So there's this little opening back here. Yeah, I know. And there we go. We can feed it through there. And then you want to go ahead and feed that back through the front for me.
Is that there?
Yep, perfect. And then if we rotate this, there is a slot here for 6-pin PCIe and 4x4 CPU. And again, it's keyed, so you really can't do this wrong. And voila, now we have that. So if we didn't have a modular cable, we'd have to feed that through and do it another way, and it can be a little bit more of a pain in the butt. So we have everything powered for our motherboard. What else do we have to feed power to?
The fans, right?
We got the fans plugged into the
Right.
motherboard, so they're getting all their power from the motherboard. We need power to the graphics card,
Oh yeah.
right? We
Yeah,
need
the
power
graphics card.
to the SSD and the hard drive, right? And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and the optical drive. We can't forget that. So we'll do the same thing here. So if you look at the front of the case here, Austin, where's the video card at? Show me where's the video card at, like height-wise. What grommet do you think the power should come through for that one? You think this one?
Yeah.
All right, look on that side. Does that look right?
Yeah, that looks
That
like
one?
it'd probably be. Oh wait, no. What about this one up here?
You think that one up there might be better?
The graphic card's the one underneath the fan, right?
Yep.
Then yeah, right here.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll send that one through there then. All right. So we'll send that there, and then we'll send the part that connects to the power supply down here. All right. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, as I kind of wiggle around here, there's only one more place for it to be installed. He says as he can't really see. There we go. All right, so that's in place there. And we have, it appears that we have enough length for the power cables to reach, right? So that's
Yeah.
good. We can leave like that for a second.
Okay.
And now we need to get power to your SATA, your SSD back here, and your hard drive. Now, the unfortunate part in this particular case appears to be that even though they use the same power connection, they use the same power connection here, we might have to use both cables. Let's see if we can actually, I don't think we'll be able to stretch it across both of them. So this is the connection that goes on to the SSD or hard drive.
Okay.
So if we attach it to the hard drive here, it just snaps into place. Now, the problem is this connection won't reach the SSD, right? And this has to plug into the power supply. So we're going to
Okay.
feed that through that, right, just for now. All right, so we'll use this one as well. Now we could fix this if we wanted to, if we were more worried about cable clutter than we
Yeah.
were about using the screwless installation or the toolless installation. We could mount that SSD here again
Yeah.
and use those two cables, but I don't think it really makes that big of a difference. So we'll go ahead and we'll install the power to this guy up here, just like that. All right, and then we'll feed this cable through as well. Oh, wait. No, we can't do that. Yeah, we have to install the optical drive. Right? The optical drive has your optical drive, your Blu-ray drive
Oh
up here.
yeah.
It's going to have one of these connections. Do we have a third cable?
No.
Let me check the bag and see. I don't think we do. And if we don't, then we'll have to move the SSD. Right? And this is, again, comes down to,
That's not the same
nope,
one.
nope, it's not the same one. We could do it if we wanted to do an adapter, but we don't really want to get into extra pieces.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes sense? Move the SSD back to one of these trays
Yeah.
over here? I think so. So we'll do that. And this is, it's actually a pretty good example of the unknowns that you get into when building a computer for the first time, right? Is you just don't really know what you're going to need in terms of the combination of components. So let's do that. Get me a couple of those little tiny screws out that we were looking at one time.
Here.
And let's see, we'll have to take out, we still have, we left that guy out.
How many do we need? Like 2?
Yeah, I think 2 is plenty for this, because this is a non-moving part component.
Okay.
So if we look overhead here, there we go. We'll do this. We'll just do that. Put that on the end of that screwdriver for me. There we go. All right, that's good. And next screw, we'll do it on the diagonal corner as our rule of thumb. Okay. And now we will slide it back in. Okay. Now what we'll do is, as we go back to the back of the case, move those out of the way for me. So now you can see we've got our SSD and our hard drive right next to each other. So if we disconnect this, we can just plug them in together on the same power cord. Just like that. All right. Make sense?
Yep.
All right. So now we'll use that extra cable that I already fed up back through here. And we'll plug in the optical drive up top. Maybe. Can't see it. There we go. So now everything appears to have power. Oh wait, we didn't actually plug in the power to our graphics card.
Yeah.
So now here's something that's interesting. See how this connector has like this extra piece
Yeah.
hanging off the side? Right, so how many pins are on that connector?
6.
And then 2 makes
2.
8. Look at the video card here.
That's got like the exact same
It's got
things.
8 on both, right?
Yeah.
So that means that in order for this to work, we have to actually use both pieces of that connector, right? See how you combine those two and it makes an 8?
Yeah.
8 pin. So hopefully, if I lift this up, get a little bit more feed in there. Push that down. And again, these are keyed similarly to how pretty much everything else has been keyed. So it's very hard to install them incorrectly. So we'll get that one going. That's installed. And then this side.
Okay, so those just clip right on, I guess.
Yeah, they don't. That's actually kind of. It's a pain. They don't actually clip on. You can see if I let go, they just release.
So you kind of have to hold
You
them on.
kind of have to hold them while you install them on there. So, actually, why don't you try to do one of these? I'm curious. So if you see how it's got it together like that, you just simply plug it in like that. Did you get it?
Yep.
All right. Yep. Yep. So there you go. Now the video card has power. Hard drive has power. SSD has power. Optical drive has power. I think everything has power. We're still missing one last step, I think, before we can get into installing software. And that's we need to connect the SSD, the hard drive, and your optical drive to the motherboard. So if you remember those 2 other packages I had you take out of the motherboard box, those are SATA cables. So go ahead and open up those packages for me. Oh, and one thing we did forget to do, we actually need to plug these into the power supply.
Okay.
Otherwise, they wouldn't actually have power at all, Austin. So we'll plug that in there. All right, we'll plug that in there too. So now all of our accessories have power. All right.
We only need 2, right?
We'll need 3.
3?
We'll need 3. These are actually kind of neat looking. Yeah. All right. Just flip it around to this side again. Just for people who are doing this at home, if you're not trying to point everything at a camera, it's very easy to keep the case standing upright and then kind of walk around to each side of the case as you're doing things. As we're doing it now, it's a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. So interestingly, we have 2 different types of cables here. Let me see. Take the other one out too. Let me see this one. Oh, this is good. So this SATA cable, if you see, it has like a right angle connector to it, whereas this one does not. Right? So this will be, this is more beneficial for installing on this surface because it's at a right angle, and so it kind of automatically comes down. Now the connector at the other end of that same cable is straight, so that when you plug it into the motherboard, it works correctly. So we'll go ahead and install one SATA cable, just like that, into the hard drive, and then we'll use another right-angled one here as well. Here, see if you can reach across and do that with this one. Just plug that into that right there until you push it until you hear it click.
There you go.
Perfect. So now we're going to attach these to the motherboard, and I'm going to guess, I think we have to feed them in this bottom part right here.
Okay.
Right, so we'll just kind of feed those through for right now. And then to get to the optical drive, let's go down here. And I don't think we have any more right angle ones, right? The one left over is not a right angle? Probably
no.
not. Okay,
No.
that's fine. So this one we'll plug into right next to the power connector for the optical drive. Now, in theory, we should be able to feed this, like just to make things a little bit neater. I think we can feed this one back through, let's see, where did we go here? I think if we feed this back through the top, let's see how we do that. You see that?
Yes.
Pull that cable through for me. Okay, go ahead. All right. And then we'll reach down here. Yeah, that should still work. That way we keep the cable out of the inside of the chassis, so that works out well. All right, so here we are on kind of our last step. We've got to have all 3 of these SATA connections installed onto our motherboard. Now, I should have showed you this really before we got into installing everything else into the board. But these right here are your SATA ports.
Okay.
Right. Now they're pointed out this way though, so you can't really see what they look like, but they essentially look like what we already connected them to. So this motherboard has connections for 6 SATA ports, so it's plenty for the devices that we have attached.
Yeah.
And if I look at it, which one of these grommets do you think it would be better placed to go through?
Which way do you mean?
I'm going to plug them in here. Do you think I should have sent them through here, or do you think they would have maybe made more sense to go through that one? Think maybe the middle one?
Yeah, probably right here.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's go ahead and undo that. And again, super easy to do. Pull those through. Yep, all 3 of them. And then feed them through the bottom part of this. Yep. All right, flip it back down. Okay. And let's see if we can't line all these up. So if we do heard one click. It doesn't really matter what order they go in, which ports they go in, as long as they're all from the same controller, which one of the simplicity stakes for selecting this motherboard is it only has the one, so we should be easy there. And then we'll plug this one into that. So there you go. We've got all 3 of them kind of bunched up there. They've all got their retention locks in place. So now, I think we might have all of the hardware side of things done. In theory, we would put the sides on the case, fire it up, see some visuals on the screen, and celebrate. But I think what we'll do is, what generally makes sense here, is we'll actually leave the sides off just in case.
Okay.
And there was one more fan to install, wasn't there? Let's go
Yes.
ahead and do that real fast. And then after we get this guy done, we will take a break, set this guy up to see if we can capture some video from it, make sure everything posts up, and then we'll go through the installation of your operating system. So now we've got our fan going. There you go. We can still make this a lot neater looking, but I think that looks pretty good inside. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty
You
good.
approve? Yeah? All right.